Some things you can explain away. A creaky floorboard, a shadow moving just right, your brain making up nonsense in the dark. But then, there are the things that don't go away, the things that shouldn't exist. A face where there isn't one, a figure that moves when it shouldn't, a presence that lingers, even when you swear you're alone. These aren't urban legends or blurry hoaxes. These are real encounters, unshakable, unexplained, and downright terrifying. From silent watchers in the woods to impossible figures lurking just beyond the light, here are 15 eerie encounters with things that should not exist. Buckle up, because once you see them, you can't unsee them. Number 15, the Watcher in Blackbird Forest. Some legends are just stories, until the camera says otherwise. Reddit user ColdGate11 was on a camping trip in Delaware's Blackbird Forest, a place drenched in whispers of phantom figures and unseen creatures. But nothing could have prepared him for what he captured. As his camera swept across the dimly lit campsite, a shadowy figure with glowing eyes lurked behind a wooden box. It wasn't just standing there, it was watching. The moment the camera flicked back in its direction, it moved. Fast. Almost too fast. The way it ducked out of sight was unnatural, calculated. Some say it was a skinwalker, others believe it was something far worse, an unknown cryptid. But the most terrifying part? When the camper went back to check, there were no footprints, no rustling, nothing to prove it was ever there. Just an empty, silent forest and that gut-wrenching feeling that something was still out there, watching. Number 14, the silent stalker on a live cam. It was 3 a.m. and Reddit user Insect8448 was watching a live feed of a remote forest, because nothing bad ever happens in the woods at night, right? Then, something moved. At first, just a shadow, shifting unnaturally in the background. But then, it stepped forward. It wasn't an animal, not even close. The figure moved wrong, its limbs jerking like a puppet on invisible strings. Then it stopped, completely still, facing the camera, watching, and then, gone. No slow retreat, no turning away, just gone. The internet went wild. Some claimed it was a cryptid, others called it a glitch in reality. But one user pointed out something chilling. It wasn't glitching, it was adjusting. It knew it was being watched. And if it knew it was being watched, that means it knew who was watching. Number 13, the red-eyed creature in the woods. A rainy night, a lone camper, and something watching from the darkness. Reddit user Zombie Paranormal was documenting his solo trip when his camera picked up something terrifying, two glowing red eyes lurking just beyond the tree line. They weren't reflecting light like an animal's. They were burning, fixed on him, completely still. And then, they vanished. Heart pounding, he stepped outside, sweeping his flashlight across the trees. Nothing. No rustling, no movement, not even a whisper of wind. Just a thick, unnatural silence that wrapped around the campsite like a warning. When he uploaded the footage, the internet exploded. Some swore it was a Wendigo, others claimed a demonic entity. But one comment sent a chill straight through his spine. If you ever see red eyes in the dark, it's already too late. That was enough for him. He packed up and left that same night. Some things, they aren't meant to be seen. Number 12, the hidden crawler in a camping photo. Reddit user Luminosity was scrolling through old camping photos when he noticed something that shouldn't be there. At first, everything seemed normal, a group of friends posing by the fire. But then he brightened the image, and there it was. A crouched figure half hidden in the darkness, its limbs too long, its skin bone white, its face twisted into something barely human. The most disturbing part? It looked like it was crawling toward them. None of them had seen or heard anything that night. No footsteps, no rustling, no warning. People in the comments immediately pointed out the resemblance to crawlers, humanoid creatures known for their unnatural, jerky movements, often spotted near campsites. Could it have been a weird trick of the light? Maybe. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. And now, luminosity will never look at that picture the same way again. Number 11. The man in the woods who shouldn't have been there. YouTuber Sky from Swamp Valley wanted a peaceful night alone in the woods. What he got was straight out of a horror movie. At first, it was just a feeling, the nagging sensation of being watched. Then, movement in the trees. And finally, a man. Not another camper, not a lost hiker, just a man standing there, staring. Sky tried to shake it off, whispering into the camera, "I don't want to sound paranoid, but this is freaking me out." He sped up, hoping to lose the stranger, but the man followed. And then, full nightmare mode. The figure reappeared, this time pouring gasoline and holding a lit torch. What followed was pure terror. Sky's camera captured flashes of flames as he ran for his life. He barely made it out. But the question still lingers. Who was that? And what would have happened if Sky had been just a second slower? Number 10. The Winged Demon of the Cliff. A man hiking alone stops at the edge of a cliff, breathing in the crisp air. The wind howls around him, but something else gnaws at his senses. An instinct, a crawling awareness that he's not alone. He raises his camera, scanning the jagged cliffside below. At first, it looks like a dark shadow, a trick of the rocks. But as he zooms in, the shape becomes clearer. A creature, perched unnaturally still, massive wings folded tightly against a skeletal frame. Its arms, if they even are arms, stretch at disturbing angles, too long, too thin, like something inhuman wearing the wrong shape. And then, it moves. Not walking, not flying, but shifting in a way that makes the air feel heavy, wrong. The hiker stumbles backward, chest tightening as an overwhelming dread crashes into him. Is it about to leap? To chase? He doesn't wait to find out. He turns and runs, but long after he's safe, one thought won't leave his mind. What if it followed? Number 9. The unknown figure in the incinerator basement. The Lillo incinerator in Kentucky is infamous for its dark past. In 1966, a young woman was found strangled inside, and ever since, something has been waiting there. When YouTuber KLW Herc decided to investigate, he expected dust, decay, and maybe a few urban legends. Instead, he found something real. As he made his way deeper into the crumbling structure, an eerie stillness filled the air like the building itself was holding its breath. Faint noises echoed from the basement, scraping, almost like footsteps, but too deliberate, too patient. Then he saw it. At first, he thought it was graffiti, a shadow painted on the wall. But then, it moved. His breath caught in his throat as he realized the thing was watching him. He bolted, sprinting up the stairs, expecting footsteps behind him. There were none. Whatever was down there didn't need to follow. It knew he'd be back, and maybe next time it wouldn't just watch. Number 8. The Rooftop Watcher. She only looked up because of the noise, a faint scraping like claws against stone. At first, she expected to see a stray cat or a bird shifting on the ledge, but when her eyes landed on the rooftop, she froze. It was perched there, watching. Thin, wiry limbs barely covered in sparse feathers, an eerily skeletal frame hunched low against the stone. But the eyes, huge, glossy, locked onto her like a predator sizing up prey. Its ears twitched, reacting to the sound of her racing heartbeat. She couldn't move. Neither did it. A silent standoff, the air around her thick, suffocating. And then, in a blink, it was gone. No rustling, no wings, just vanished. Neighbors searched the rooftop, but there was nothing. No tracks, no feathers, no proof. Just the girl, trembling, convinced that somewhere in the darkness, those eyes were still there, watching. Number 7. The balcony visitor. A man in Mexico City stepped onto his balcony for fresh air, the hum of traffic below a distant murmur. It was late, too late for visitors. But as he leaned against the railing, something was already there. Just a few feet away, a figure stood in the dim light. At first, he thought it was a homeless person, wrapped in tattered cloth, swaying in the breeze. But then he saw its face, or rather, what should have been a face, distorted, stretched, hollow-eyed. The skin looked warped and melted like something had tried to reshape it but failed. A sickening wave of dread hit him. He tried to move, to say something, but he couldn't. The figure just stood there, watching. Then, gone. No movement, no sound, just empty air. Locals whisper of spirits trapped between worlds, unable to pass on. But the man knows what he saw, and sometimes they don't just watch, they wait. Number 6. The shadowy lurker. October 2015. A man sat alone in his dimly lit living room, scrolling through his phone when the sensation hit him. A chill creeping up his spine, the feeling of being watched. His breath stilled. Slowly he turned toward the window, and there, just beyond the glass, something stood. Too tall, too thin. Its limbs are unnaturally long. The glow from the streetlight barely illuminated its shape, but its eyes, they burned, locked onto him. He wanted to believe it was a trick of the light until it tilted its head. That was enough. His hands trembled as he lifted his phone, desperate to capture proof. But the second he hit record, it moved, not stepping back, not walking away, just fading, dissolving into the darkness like it had never been there at all. His footage? Blurry, indistinct. The internet dismissed it as a shadow, but he knew better. It saw him, and some nights he still feels it, waiting outside. Number 5. The roadside encounter. A quiet night ride turned into a nightmare. A man was cycling down an empty rural road, letting the cool air clear his thoughts. Then, movement. His headlight flickered over something crossing the road fast. He braked hard, his pulse spiking. It wasn't a deer, wasn't a stray dog. It was something else. A pale, bone-thin creature darted across the pavement, its body contorted, unnatural. It moved like a spider, on all fours, but not like any animal. Its limbs were too long, and its joints bent at the wrong angles. As it disappeared into the brush, its head snapped toward him. He couldn't see its face, but he could feel it watching. Frozen, he strained to hear movement. Nothing. No footsteps. No rustling. Just silence. Locals whispered about skinwalkers. Others claimed an alien. He didn't care. He just pedaled as fast as he could, because deep down, he knew. It saw him. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't alone. Number 4. The cave humanoid. Exploring a cave at night? Bad idea. This adventurer found out the hard way. Armed with a flashlight and misplaced bravery, he stepped deeper into the tunnel. The air was thick and damp. The only sound? The slow drip of water echoed in the dark. Then, he heard something else. Not water, not echoes. Breathing. His flashlight flickered. Shadows twitched along the jagged walls. And then he saw it. A pale, emaciated figure crouched in the darkness. Its ribs stuck out, skin stretched too tight, eyes like black pits. It didn't move, didn't blink, just watched. Then, it lunged. A grotesque, jerky movement, its mouth gaping impossibly wide. The explorer stumbled backward, his light shaking. A guttural, wet growl cut through the silence as bony fingers twitched. He didn't wait to see what it wanted. He ran. Behind him, the sound of skittering movement echoed through the cave. He made it out. Barely, but not alone. Number 3. The Veiled Watcher. Security cameras capture a lot of strange things: wandering animals, flickering streetlights, the occasional trespasser. But at 3 a.m., one camera caught something that wasn't supposed to be there. The footage showed a figure, draped in white, moving down an empty street. Not walking, gliding. Its face was hidden in shadow, its movements unnatural, like it was being pulled by invisible strings. And then, it stopped. It turned toward the camera. No eyes, no features, just an endless black void where a face should be. A skeletal hand lifted, fingers too long, too thin, curling in a way that sent a wave of unease through the viewer. The screen flickered, glitched, static. When the feed returned, it was gone. No footprints, no sign it had ever been there. Some say it was a lost spirit. Others think it was something far worse. But one question lingers. If it didn't want to be seen, why did it stop to look? Number 2. The skinwalker transformation. Night had settled over a small neighborhood in Punjab, the streets quiet and still. A group of kids played near the alley, laughing until one of them froze. A young boy, no older than 10, suddenly jerked and convulsed, his body twisting in ways that shouldn't be possible. His friends backed away, laughter fading into confusion, then fear. Before their eyes, the boy's form shifted. His limbs shortened, his face stretched, and his bones snapped into something new. In mere seconds, he was gone. In his place, a dog, panting, shaking itself off as if nothing had happened. The kids screamed and ran, their terrified voices echoing through the empty streets. The footage spread online like wildfire, igniting debates. Was it a hoax? A glitch in reality? Proof of something ancient walking among us? Some dismissed it as a trick of the camera, but those who know the old stories whispered something else. Skinwalkers only reveal their true form when they're hungry. Number 1. The unseen presence in an abandoned farmhouse. YouTuber. The Flex Tapes thought he was spending another night urban exploring an abandoned farmhouse. He wasn't alone. The place was old, decaying, and eerily silent. He set up his camera and tried to sleep until he heard footsteps. Slow, heavy, climbing the stairs, coming straight toward him. Heart pounding, he grabbed his flashlight, but before he could react, his camera caught something. A figure in the doorway, just standing there. No sound, no breath, just pure darkness in human form. He bolted. The next day, he checked the footage. The figure wasn't there, but the footsteps, the suffocating feeling of being watched, very real. If you ever feel like exploring an abandoned place, do yourself a favor. Google it first. Some places have a haunted history better left undisturbed. If you enjoyed this nightmare fuel, hit like, share, and subscribe for more stories that will keep you up at night. And remember, sometimes the scariest things aren't in stories. They're waiting in the dark.